All sources cited will be provided by info cards at the top right of the screen as well as in the video description. This video discusses the topic of sexual violence and abuse. Viewer discretion is advised. Many people are aware of the Boy Scouts of America's ongoing bankruptcy. At least, they've heard of it in passing. However, most people are unaware of the reasoning behind it. This Chapter 11 bankruptcy is seeking to restructure the BSA financially to compensate victims of sexual assault endured through the Scouts. Considering the lack of public knowledge or media coverage on the lawsuit, it may seem like a few isolated incidents. However, the Boy Scouts has a history of over 5,000 confirmed sexual abusers since the 1940s. So why does seemingly nobody know about this? The best way to begin exploring this question is to gain context behind the bankruptcy. In short, according to the federal judiciary, a Chapter 11 bankruptcy allows an organization to reorganize itself financially in order to pay out debts or compensation. In the case of the Boy Scouts, the bankruptcy has been filed to compensate victims of sexual abuse that they've endured because of a leader in the organization. There's a limited window of time that victims are able to contact a participating law office so they can receive their share. If victims fail to take action within this window, the Scouts will not be legally responsible to provide them any compensation after the lawsuit is finished. According to an NPR article by Laurel Wamsley and Wade Goodwin, some states have recently changed their laws to allow more time for victims to file suit in cases like this, which provides more people the opportunity to collect their compensation. This lawsuit could be huge for the Boy Scouts. In 2010, one settlement alone reached almost $20 million. There could be a possibility that this bankruptcy detracts from the sexual abuse and directs people's attention to a financial ordeal, which would mirror complaints about sexual abuse settlements in the Catholic Church. Looking into the public response to the Catholic Church's sexual assault allegations could give insight into why the Boy Scout situation is so unknown. In a study conducted by the Pew Research Center, most Americans are familiar with the abuse allegations within the church. Nearly 70% of respondents believe that this is still an ongoing issue in the church. However, respondents that are affiliated with the church are 10% less likely to believe that this is still an ongoing issue that the church faces compared to non-members. The premier legal group behind the Boy Scouts allegations, Abused in Scouting, actively promotes advertisements on Facebook for victims to file for compensation, and comments left on these posts reflect the findings of the Pew study. Former Scouts are very active in comments, mainly saying, well, it never happened to me or my kids. This ideology of disbelief is oblivious to its own irony. With over 5,000 leaders having been confirmed sexual abusers since the 40s, these people could just as easily have been victims or stood alongside someone enduring abuse and not known it. However, it seems most commenters fail to realize this as they spread disbelief on social media. Unfortunately, these advertisements are no longer available, so I can't provide examples. Being a male survivor of sexual assault brings its own issues that some may not consider, and it's more common than you may think. Would you believe that 1 in 6 men will face sexual abuse in their life? That probably comes as surprising, maybe even unbelievable, but research from 1990 to 2005 supports it. In fact, 1 out of 6 could even be an underestimate, as it doesn't account for non-contact situations, and men are even less likely to report sexual abuse than women are. The organization behind the statistic is called 1 in 6, which offers support groups for male survivors as well as working with nationally funded foundations to help raise awareness about male rape. One of the organizations that 1 in 6 works with is RAIN, or the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. RAIN administrates the National Sexual Assault Hotline and acts as the lead national voice on sexual assault. According to RAIN, there are certain issues that men can face as opposed to women after experiencing sexual abuse. Men are much less likely to seek help or tell others about what happened than women are. Men can also feel demasculated or helpless that they couldn't fight back, apparently more so than women usually would. This can make it challenging for victims to vocalize what's happened to them, and it can cause deeply rooted mental effects through a long portion of their lives. This may be the reason that so many victims have come forth to confront the Boy Scouts recently, whereas they previously haven't been. Publicizing their experiences can be extremely humiliating for men, and they may have felt powerless before the legal groups offered their help. According to a study by the University of Central Lancashire, certain stigmas surround male rape that may not always apply for women. Just as female victims can sometimes be ridiculed for wearing revealing clothing that may have caused a sexual assault, some people may denounce a male victim entirely because he's lucky that an older woman wanted to do something with him. And there are even some extreme ideologies that believe it's not even possible for a woman to rape a man, which is just blatantly untrue. Until the 1990s, sexual assault had always been a feminist issue, typically concerning men acting upon women, so research about sexual abuse against men hasn't been conducted until relatively recently. However, the research that has been conducted has found that social stigmas surrounding masculinity and men's roles in society shroud male rape. Because men can feel demasculated and powerless after something like this has happened, they're less likely to report it to police, which may explain why it's so striking to hear that 1 in 6 men experiences sexual abuse. It's just not reported. Another reason male rape is not commonly acknowledged could stem from a rather extreme feminist ideology in America of a patriarchal society with deeply misogynistic intent. This indirectly downplays sexual assault men endure because it portrays them as the ones in absolute power, and it doesn't necessarily fit with the traditional American feminist view on sexual assault. Combining this with the recent Me Too movement, which largely acknowledged female survivors, it may explain why the extensive history of sexual abuse in the Boy Scouts has been seemingly unknown for so long. So, what can be done? The first step should be acknowledging that sexual abuse can happen to anyone, regardless of age, race, gender, or orientation. The second step should be empathizing with survivors. The countless comments on social media ads for the lawsuit by men explaining that it never happened to them and that there's nothing wrong with the organization are completely misguided. Just because you haven't seen it does not mean it doesn't exist. By voicing these things, it hinders any progress destigmatizing male rape. At the University of Southern Mississippi, many students are very active in sexual assault and prevention. At orientation, students are required to attend a spoken word performance that demonstrates how to identify a sexual assault scenario, but every time it portrays a man acting upon a drunk woman at a party. Nearly every time sexual assault is mentioned, it's in the context of men acting upon women. Awareness performances like this should acknowledge that although 20% of all women are said to experience sexual misconduct, the probability of a man experiencing it is not far off at 17%. Maybe on-campus organizations like the Sexual Assault Prevention Ambassadors could host awareness events about sexual misconduct against men. The Boy Scouts bankruptcy should not distract from the matter at hand. Thousands of men and boys are survivors of sexual misconduct, and their voices should be acknowledged so we can progress.